Good morning. I'm Pat Szynski, the current chair of the League of Women Voters of Door County. First, let me say happy Valentine's Day, since today is Valentine's Day. It influenced my choice of what I was going to wear, because I had to wear red, but also coincidentally, Valentine's Day is the 102nd birthday of the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters was started in 1920 when women finally gained the franchise to vote. And the League formed from those early suffragists who realized that the women who suddenly were able to vote needed to have information to know literally how to vote or how to physically cast a ballot and to understand what they were doing when they cast that ballot. So the League was born of that suffragist movement. Door County's League was started in 1952, which was the year I was born, and has done many things through the years to help people learn about voting and the issues of the day. 2 years ago, the League of Women Voters completed a local 3-year study on mental health and substance use in the county, our county. The study identified local resources and unmet needs. Part of the follow-up work for the study is to educate the public about local mental health resources and to advocate for filling unmet needs. The Door County Collaborative School Mental Health Project is a program of United Way, which was created in 2018 to remove barriers for accessing quality mental health care for Door County youth. The collaborative offers on-site mental health services in all 5 of our Door County school districts. At this point, I want to remind our members and friends to please do your phone and email contacts that we have been sending you emails about the last week. To the members of the Door County Finance Committee and advocate for one of the unmet needs that was identified in our study. That is a transitional living and crisis diversion sober living facility in Door County. This is something that agency after agency talked about as the mental health study was done, and now there is a proposal that will need to be passed by the Finance Committee, which meets tomorrow, Wednesday the 16th. So we're asking people to call those supervisors to encourage them to pass this to be voted on by the larger committee. Okay, now, without further ado, I want to introduce our speakers today. We have a panel which includes Cami, Peggar.
Oh, that's me. I'm sorry. Hello.
Yeah, the Stride coordinator from United Way. Also is Bibs Maloney, mental health navigator for United Way. Jodi Gonzales, Stride creative provider from Jodi Rose Studios, and Brettel, licensed clinical social worker and substance abuse counselor from the Door County Medical Center. And I will let them further describe the program Stride. And thank you again for coming or watching.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. And I hope you don't mind that we're all sitting down. We're trying to do virtual and in person, and we're still learning how to do that. So my name is Cami, and I am the Community Impact Coordinator of Health at United Way, and I mainly focus on mental health initiatives, including Stride. So Stride, let me just see. Okay, so why did we come up with Stride? Why do we see the need to put mental health resources in our schools? Well, nationally, 1 in 6 youth aged 6 to 17 years of age experience a mental health disorder, and suicide is the second leading cause of death among people aged 10 to 34. So Mental Health America reports that 10% of youth have a severe major depression, while 15% of youth experience major depressive episodes in the past year. So just to put this in perspective, If we take Door County high school students, that's about 112 Door County high school students that have severe major depression, and 174 Door County high school students that have had a major depressive episode. And as you all may know, that the COVID pandemic is creating a mental health pandemic. The Child Mind Institute had conducted a study last year to see what the effects of the pandemic was on youth mental health. And 37% of those teens that participated in this study reported that, oh, let me try that one again. 37% reported that it made their mental health worse. And since March of 2020, 40% of teens say they have experienced anxiety, 39% say they had feelings of depression, and 31% have encountered social anxiety. So that's nationally. But what's going on in Door County? 14% of high school and 18% of middle school students have considered suicide. That's just in Door County. 28% of high school and 25% of middle school students experience sadness. And then 49% of high school and 54% of middle school students have significant problems with anxiety. I'd like to keep this in mind. This is based on the Youth Risk Behavior Survey that the Department of Public Instruction puts out every 2 years. These results are from 2019. So they did just re-administer the survey in fall of 2021. We are still waiting on those results. We'd like to think that our numbers are going down, but as we see trends from this pandemic, they may not be. Okay. I have a lot of stats in my paper that I have to find my place, so sorry about that. Let's see. Anybody else have anything to add before I move on to our STRIDE partners and why we began STRIDE? Nope. All right.
So back in 2017, after looking at national statistics, local statistics, and assessing limitations to access to mental health resources for Door County mainland schools, as well as for local mental health providers, got together to discuss these issues, and they came up with STRIDE. Now, STRIDE has grown to be a collaborative of all 5 Door County school districts, as well as 7 mental health providers and United Way of Door County staff as well. The mental health providers that work with us are the Door County Department of Health and Human Services, Door County Medical Center, Counseling Associate, Innovative Services, Inc., Bellin, Innovative Counseling, and Jodi of Jodi Rose Studios, who is our art therapist and who you will be hearing more from later.
So one of the barriers we wanted to address when we talked about providing youth with mental health services was the amount of mental health providers in Door County. Door County has a rate of about 1 provider to about 710, or I'm sorry, 1 person to about 710 providers. When we look at Wisconsin, their rates are about 1 provider for 470 people. And then nationally, it's about 1 provider for 270 people. So we are significantly lacking in our mental health providers. And when you think about the county, we are, of course, a peninsula. We're a beautiful peninsula, but many of our providers are in Sturgeon Bay. If you have a student that goes to Gibraltar and their parent works in Northern Door County and they have to take off work to pick up their student, to drive to Sturgeon Bay, to have an hour appointment and then back, it could be almost a full day process. And that's, a pay cut that the parent has to make, or PTO. So those are just some of the barriers that we had to look at when we thought about how can we provide mental health resources to our Door County youth. So what does STRIDE actually stand for? STRIDE stands for Strengthening Trust and Resilience, Instilling Independence, and Discovering Empowerment, which I forgot the empowerment on my PowerPoint. Yes. So when we started STRIDE, our main focus was to provide one-on-one quality mental health counseling through our STRIDE mental health providers. We partnered each of our schools with one of our mental health providers. And what they would do is 1 day a week, they would go during the school year, they would go to that school and provide one-on-one counseling with the students that are referred. Students do have to be referred to Stride, and they have to qualify for one of the barriers that we have predetermined, which includes the traveling issues, inability to pay, no insurance, parents not being able to take the time off of work to bring their child to a mental health provider. So we do this because our funding comes from donations and grants. And as much as we'd like to help everyone, we just are limited. And B, we do not want to compete with our local mental health providers. We want students that really have those barriers, that really need to be seen, participate in Stride. So I don't know, Allie, do you have anything you'd like to add about you being our Stride provider, meeting one-on-one, about the process or?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bretl. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and substance abuse counselor at Door County Medical Center. I am the Stride provider that provides behavioral health services at Sturgeon Bay Middle School and High School. I go into Sturgeon Bay Middle School and High School every Wednesday morning from the hours of 8 a.m. until noon. And there, I guess the referral process, would you like me to maybe talk a little bit about the referral process? So the referral process, what the referral process looks like is either the parent identifies a barrier, the guidance counselor at school identifies a barrier, or really the student identifies a barrier and asks for mental health services that they may definitely be in need of. Once that referral is set, I then do an initial evaluation with the student, and that consists of an hour and a half long evaluation, depending on the student and the student's needs, where I assess for any type of mental health condition, any type of strain in stability at home or stability at school. And then from there, we determine a plan of action as to how we want to move forward with therapy. Like Cami said, I spend subsequent sessions about an hour every week with the student, depending on their needs. And then Stride is an amazing program because I quite literally do exactly what I do in my office at the hospital, but I do it at school. So I have chills just like saying that out loud. I didn't think I was gonna have chills saying that out loud. It's just amazing what I'm able to give to a student that's in need without them ever leaving the school. We walked down the hall to a different office, and just this last week, I should say 2 weeks ago, a student looked me in the eye and he said, you know, Allie, I really like meeting with you because I get to get out of science class, but I also don't have to leave my school because my mom can't come and pick me up to see you. And like that brought a tear to my eyes because this student was in such great need of just to talk, to be able to identify what's happening for him, when it's happening for him. And that was something that I was able to give him without him even having to leave the school, which I thought was, like I said, it brings chills to me. Yeah, I think is that enough? Okay.
Yeah, you brought tears to my eyes, so you're perfect. All right. So we started in the 2018-2019 school year. And that school year, we were able to see 33 Door County students through Stride. The next school year, we saw 39 students. And last school year, the 2020-2021 school year, we saw 46 students. So far this year, we have about 60 students being seen by a Stride provider. So we are hearing a lot about increased anxiety in students in school, and we've had 3 separate schools request additional hours. The other 2 schools do have full waiting lists right now. So if anybody else does get referred, they will either be on a wait list or they will have to, well, we will have to increase their time, which is also increasing the fundraising that we are going to be doing this year. So to have a good program, we want to successfully track the progress of our students. And what we use is called an SDQ. It's a strengths and difficulties questionnaire. It is evidence-based. We started out just by having the referring teacher or school counselor do a pre and post SDQ when students are either entering into the program or leaving it or at the end of the school year. This year, we are also implementing a student or a self-reported SDQ from the students in it so that we can get more of that wraparound data to really be able to bring to our community to say, look at this program and look at what we're doing. So just a couple of points from last school year that I'd like to share with you based on our SDQs is last year, the emotional symptoms of students based on these SDQs had decreased by 46%. Their impact of difficulties on a child's life have decreased by 72%. And then overall stress on a student decreased by 57%. So that was just based last year on our STRIDE students that met with a mental health provider.
Do you want me to give a couple
Yeah, you go right ahead.
questions, just to kind of give you an idea as to like what the SDQ really consists of. As a STRIDE provider, I complete those assessments with the students because most times it's a little difficult for them to do themselves. So a couple of questions that they have to answer if they experience it often, some of the times or never, is getting along well with others. Feeling safe and secure at home, always needing to be by mom and dad, feeling safe at school. That's another big one. Feeling jittery or feeling like they can't concentrate, assessing for anxiety. Feeling sad or feeling like they've lost enjoyment in certain activities that they used to find enjoyment in, assessing for some sort of depression. Feeling like, I'm trying to think of like one other big one, but it escaped me. So just like they're very specific questions or very specific statements that a student has to answer to be able to help us assess as to the extent or severity of what they're struggling with.
So that is our one-on-one STRIDE, which we started in 2018. In the winter/spring of 2020, we had worked with Jodi Gonzales, our art therapist, to start a STRIDE creative aspect. Now, originally we had thought to utilize Jodi to do one-on-one art therapy in schools, but COVID just likes to throw a wrench in everything. So we altered our aspect of what we did with STRIDE Creative and our Mighty Teen program. And I'm gonna hand it over to Jodi to talk more about that.
Thanks, Cami. As Cami mentioned, the pandemic called for necessary change in how STRIDE creative services were provided to the students. One of our service barriers was that I was the sole provider. So I was going to all 5 school districts. And this is in contrast to the regular STRIDE providers who are assigned to one school. So we had to consider the exposure risk across all 5 school districts, but we also had to consider that every district had a unique plan for classrooms. Gibraltar was exclusively virtual. Other districts were in person, some were hybrid. And so even if I were to go to a school and a student were there one week, it may not necessarily be so the next. So meanwhile, of course, extracurricular activities were closed and across the board, students were lacking resources. And also meanwhile, we knew that pandemic stress only heightened problematic home situations or created new ones. So we knew that we needed to address all of this immediately. Cami, could you please next slide? So from that criteria, we asked, how do we reach the broadest number of students? How do we provide services with consistency? Consistency is so key. Mm-hmm. In what way is the program helpful? In other words, what are our new program goals and objectives? Next slide, please. So this was September. At our September STRIDE meeting, I think that's the right slide. Okay. At our September STRIDE meeting, we addressed these questions and the Mighty Teens Empowerment Project was proposed. It was unanimously approved to roll out an online after-school program that used art journaling and discussion as the basis for psychoeducation around topics such as self-talk and limiting beliefs, emotional safety, resilience, growth mindset, triggers and coping skills, and the health benefits of gratitude and community service. At that time, it was also decided, why not also make the program free for everyone on an online platform and website that had not been built yet. And it was also decided, let's do that as soon as possible. So next slide, please. 3 weeks later, we enrolled a 9-week program with 34 youth involved from all 5 school districts. And we had a new website, which hosts the self-paced on-demand program that we'll tour through in a moment. As I said, we'll tour through that, but I wanted to talk a little bit about why the group process and also why art journaling. Next slide, please. So one of the benefits of the group process, we probably think, oh, we did groups because that reaches the most people, but group process has phenomenal healing powers, even virtually. So for example, the feelings of isolation when a student experiences anxiety or panic attacks, we share techniques, breathing techniques, other techniques to help cope with those sorts of situational things. And I say, how many of you have experienced this? And then they raise their hand, and then we practice a technique. And it's not long before someone says, I was the only person, I thought I was the only one. And then someone else says, I thought I was the only one. And then this starts this cohesion within the group and a place where they feel like they can be authentic about what they're experiencing in their emotional health. It's also strength-based. It's a strength-based program. I have numerous students who at the beginning, for first session, they either make something up or they say, I can't name a strength. And so I say, well, I can see a strength, and I bet you everyone else here can see a strength. So group, let's support so-and-so. What strengths do you see? And so we share that. And by the end, the first session I think of in particular, that first fall, one girl who couldn't think of a strength at the very end said that she loved helping others when we did the helping others module, because it was a way for her to share her strengths, because now she could name many. Stigma reduction is another aspect. It's really easy to tell the kids that are in psychotherapy or some form of treatment and those who are not when you get them in the group. The kids that have had therapy are really comfortable talking about their feelings, and they demonstrate insight. And kids that maybe come from a family culture where they're not used to talking about their feelings are pretty uncomfortable. But when they start to develop that group cohesion and the realization that no one's really alone in their experiences, those that have therapy, who normally they thought something was wrong with them because they're in therapy, now they're taking a leadership position. They're saying, oh, and they're sharing their own tools and skills that they have for, in this case, managing anxiety. And so, they have that empowerment aspect of being leaders within their group, but then they also empower other students who might not be used to using their voice or expressing themselves. They encourage them to do so. And then social exposure. So this is a big one. This small group environment is critical for students who have social anxiety, and we've seen a lot of this. The option for virtual schooling during the pandemic is not helpful for kids with social anxiety. They may be thinking that they're thriving because they're at home where they're more comfortable, but they're not, especially in the last year, they were missing out on the exposure opportunities at school. So when we get in a small group outside of the people they're familiar with, it was very hard for them to even show their face on screen. And so we start by, or to use their voice for that matter. And so we start by, please have the camera on and maybe sit off to the side. Can we see a shoulder or a hand? And then over several weeks, we move to where they can be seen on the camera. They may not feel comfortable talking about their artwork, but they'll show it. And so that is so powerful because they're expressing themselves non-verbally, and we build up to the verbal communication. So for those students with mental health challenges that would otherwise find it difficult to enroll in a group extracurricular, our small group format is extremely important as a first-time experience and bridge. where they can learn to successfully navigate a social or group experience and celebrate their strengths the whole way. And so that brings us to the art. Cami, can you please, next slide? Why art? Why art journaling? And is this only for artistic students? The answer is no. What is this girl feeling? Is she happy and acting silly? Is she nervous or grimacing? It can be very difficult for us to interpret our youth's emotions, and equally, if not more difficult for them to interpret their own. So drawing is a developmentally appropriate learning tool. In the 5th through 8th grades and through adolescence, their outer brains are still developing. That's the part of their minds that uses language and problem-solving skills. Image making using symbols and metaphors is much more natural to them. And it's often easier for students to express themselves whether or not they think they're good at art if they use image making. Next slide. We've all heard the adage that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and it's a way of sorting feelings that can easily bundle up and show up as frustration, irritation, anxiety, or strong emotions. We want to teach students how to use drawing as a tool to do just that, to sort things out, even with little doodles and scribbles and selection of line quality and color. Once they can identify how they feel and start to untangle those, they can learn to talk about how they feel using words. You see, it's much easier to talk about something when it's out here than coming from here. Mm-hmm. And the art journal format allows students to identify what they think or feel and then practice the verbal communication. And this is important for students with a range of issues, whether they have a diagnosable mental health issue or disability. Maybe they're a perfectionist, or maybe they're withdrawn, having been bullied, or because they have social anxiety. Talking about the drawing softens the vulnerability of self-expression because the eyes are over here on the drawing and not here. And we explore this idea very directly in week 2 when we talk about emotional safety, because sometimes we need to tell someone something and we don't have any idea where to start. And sometimes whatever happened might be too overwhelming to even talk about. So, but they can create an image and they can explain what they drew and why. And for many, this is huge. This brings us to our last major why about art journaling. Next slide, please. It is an evidence-based coping strategy. Research demonstrates that drawing and creative activities lowers the heart and breath rate, shifts brainwave patterns, decreases the production of the stress hormone cortisol. And all of these things help the creator, the person, whatever it is, drawing, or it could be anything with the hands out here. In this case, of course, it's drawing. It helps you feel calmer and more at ease. And for youth, this helps them regulate their behavior when they feel calmer. So we talk about the mind-body science of creativity. We introduce creativity as a biologically relevant coping skill. I use that with 5th graders, they get it, versus coping activities that aren't helpful or that numb us out. We identify other activities and coping skills that are biologically relevant. In other words, what activities do they do that create a measurable shift in the brain and body towards helping them be calmer and more in control of themselves? Like I said, if this sounds sophisticated for a 5th grader, it is and it's not, because the drawings offer the experiential learning and the group discussion helps them gain knowledge through the sharing of each other's perspectives. They have fun because they're not being talked at. And if they are socially anxious, those biological benefits of the drawing process helps them self-soothe in that group environment so that they can take the information in and participate, which is pretty cool. Next slide, please. So this is the strategy behind the group and art processes. We are currently in our 4th session. We started with a 9-week session, but we've honed it down to a 7-week program with 2 age groups, the 5th, 6th graders and the 7th, 8th graders. We also have a shorter 3-week program that we call the Mighty Teens Sprint for the high schoolers. Last year, so after rolling this out from nothing in September, last year we served 84 youth from all 5 school districts. Mm-hmm. This year, extracurriculars are being offered, so we have fewer groups. We've served about 17 so far, but we are creating a facilitator training program so that other people can offer this besides me. And perhaps offer the program outside of Door County as well. And we'll be expanding to adult programs as well, which I'll share in a moment. But first, let's tour the program. So Cami, if you could drop that down and bring the website up. So you've been seeing our homepage.
Okay, let's just see here.
So the program is now offered free and adults are welcome to take it. They're great little drawing prompts. There's 9 modules.
You want me to share the?
Yep, if you could bring up the website, please. Oh, we saw your friend. Is that Helen?
Yes.
Hi, Helen. Thanks for watching from afar. So just a little bit about our website. It's stridecreativedc.com. And there are some great resources. The About page just gives a little overview. There's a stress and anxiety page. It talks about resiliency. What is it? How do you get it? How do you lose it? And then also a Getting Help page, which offers resources, help hotlines, and a link to the Door County Mental Health Resource Guide. This Mighty Teens page is where one registers. There are little videos that describe the inside of the program, some of the program benefits, and frequently asked questions. As I said, adults can register in addition to youth. Even though it's Mighty Teens, and these topics about resilience, these fun little drawing prompts are pretty interesting. We did an the adult registration because we've had case managers from Door County Health and Human Services do this with some of their youth, or if a teacher or parent or a respite worker, sometimes they do this as an activity with youth as well. We're already logged in, but I wanted to show you, once you log in, which takes like 35 seconds, you get about 3 emails with all these welcome, click here, here's your login credentials, and then you log into the program, and this is what it looks like. So here you can see all of the 9 modules. In this case, each module has 2 videos. The first one will always have the art prompt, and the videos are like 5 to 7 minutes long. They introduce the mental health topic, and then in the next category, it's some sort of tip. And this, I accidentally went to the next category, but the second video is usually a tip, like a breathing technique or something like that, that students can use to self-regulate. One that I used this morning because I was feeling a little anxious driving down here, it's called tapping. And so we introduced tapping. It is really great for moments like when the heart starts to pound. So, but you see how easy this is to use, and next category just goes to the next thing. I'll refrain from showing the actual videos, but they're fun. They're a little bit of me talking, and then there's these fun little like doodle things. So they're interesting to watch. I like to think, as opposed to just a straight on lecture. Also on this website, when the pandemic started and schools went virtual and I could not go to schools, we had just started our program with the one-on-ones. We produced a number of videos with really great family activities. And so those are all hosted on this page as well. So that's our little tour. Cami, if you could bring the PowerPoint back up. Ooh, I'm still talking. I'm almost done, guys.
You'd think we'd be like experts at this by now.
And that's it. The one that looks like the. Why not? I think it's. Yeah. So you'll see this platform change in the coming months as we expand to include an adult program. Our adult program supports the efforts of other community mental health initiatives, such as the Trauma-Informed Community Team and the Mental Health Focus Group. It will offer trainings in trauma, secondary trauma, trauma-informed care, and mindfulness, as well as experiential programs designed to support resiliency and self-care. And like Mighty Teens, it will be offered free and online. There will be art prompts, breathing techniques, different types of things informed by yoga, And it will include also positive psychology and the latest in mind-body research through the on-demand and the brief video tutorials. Next slide, please. We're curating the program to fit the needs of our community so that it can be a resource not only to the public, but also to service providers, not just mental health, but medical professionals as well, that they can recommend to their clients and patients and use for their own self-care. Remember that these are science-based, biologically relevant resources that are proven to improve mind-body wellness. So the program supports the work of people already in treatment, as well as people who are experiencing chronic stress. And this is important. Next slide. In 2016, chronic stress was already an epidemic in our country. Cami noted this, but it cost our society over $300 billion in stress-related illness, lost wages, and medical expenses. In addition to being a precursor to numerous mental health issues, chronic stress is related to a lot of other physical health issues, including sleep disorder, heart disease, and digestive issues, just to name a few. And we know that chronic stress and suicidality have both risen, not only nationally, statistically, but in our community as well. In fact, the American Psychological Association states that we're facing a mental health crisis that could yield serious health consequences and mental and social consequences for years to come. So in addressing stress and its symptoms, the tools and techniques in STRIDE are offered as a preventative and as well as a protective measure for those who may be at risk of suicide. We're trying to share information that's proven to be effective, free. You don't have to go anywhere to buy a tool or a book or anything like that. It's non-pharmaceutical, it'll work if you choose to use them. And in making these programs accessible, we hope that they can also be shared with our youth as well. We're going to be reaching out to caregivers, parents, teachers, small business owners, first responders, medical and mental health professionals, and people juggling more than one job, because these are the people that are demonstrated to have even higher levels of risk and issues than the general public. And in our community, that happens to be pretty much everyone, given the nature of our community. Next slide, please. So there you have it. From the initial seeds planted from STRIDE, we're now cultivating a huge community wellness initiative that bridges the efforts of numerous mental health task groups, empowering our community members through education and evidence-based resources, delivering both free and on demand through stridecreativedc.com. Thanks for listening. We'll be answering questions later, but I'll hand this back to Cami and Bibs.
Wonderful, thank you. If you couldn't tell, we have a lot of great people on our coalition, which makes this program really fabulous. So you can hear how passionate they are. And I know they do a wonderful job. So besides our one-on-one mental health providers meeting students in schools and our STRIDE creative initiatives, we try to target mental health in Door County in other ways, such as increasing community awareness, reducing mental health stigma, and increasing trainings and support to school staff around mental wellness issues. So part of that is Bibs is our mental health navigator, what it's called. And she works very closely with the schools to be a support system and a resource for them. So we would just like to have Bibs explain what she does and how that's going to help our schools.
Thank you. So I was hired as the mental health navigator in November of this year by United Way of Door County to work specifically with STRIDE, but my position is funded by a grant through the DPI. And one of the main requirements of that grant is that I'm at a different Door County school every day of the week. So the specifics of what my role is at each school varies a little bit based on needs expressed by school counselors or other staff, but my overall job is the same, which includes just creating connections, being additional support for staff and students, being a resource for all things STRIDE, and providing trainings for community and staff, which are led by experts, not by me, including, and these trainings are meant to help reduce things like stigma, open up conversations about hard topics such as suicide. For example, this spring, we are working with the Suicide Prevention Coalition to host a QPR training which stands for question, persuade, and refer. We just hope that things like this can help. I mean, there still is so much stigma around mental health, and we know that, and that's a huge thing that we need to work on, so that hopefully by providing these trainings, we can help facilitate those conversations. I also do a mental wellness moment every week that I send out, and that every day has a different theme, like breathing activities, growth mindset activities. The easiest way that I know how to access that, if you're interested, is Washington Island School's homepage has a quick link, and they post the new ones every Friday. And there's also the whole archived, I think everyone that's ever been done, which there were many before I took it over. And then I'd send out a newsletter every month, just based on one or more mental health topics. February, I focused on how we can individually help reduce the stigma of mental health. I actually don't really know how you can access those. I don't think we have I send them out to counselors and schools. And
right. So right now we share them with our schools, and they send them out to their people.
Yeah. So
I was going to say congregation, but I don't think their families to share with the mental wellness moments and the mental health newsletters.
So maybe if you know their people, you could access that. Yeah, but that's all I have.
So we're very excited to have Bibs in the schools. I don't know if many of you know, Melissa Andrews was our previous mental health navigator, and she was with United Way for, I think, 2.5, 3 years. And we had worked to get her into the schools. And of course, again, the pandemic kind of put a kibosh to that. So when we hired Bibs, we were excited to start that role, and the schools are all excited to have her in there. And I think this week will be your 4th or 5th week in the schools. Yeah. And so far, I think you're loving it and the kids are loving it. And part of me wishes I had your guys' job, like it's to work with the kids instead of behind the desk on the computer, but that's okay, because I like what I do too. So as we kind of get to the end of our presentation here, we just really want to talk about, you heard what we do, but what are we seeing now in our youth? And like I said, I don't work directly with the kids. So what I'm hearing is basically from the schools. And what they have reported to me is the anxiety is just through the roof. Sometimes it's debilitating. One of the counselors reported that she spends all morning talking to a select few of kids every day, just trying to convince them to stay in school and give it a try. And they spend pretty much all morning out of class until they're ready to go to class in the afternoon. So that's taking her away from other things she could be doing or other help she could be providing, or her classes. Is taking away the kids' learning, spending all morning just working through these issues. Like I said previously, we have had to increase 3 of our schools one-on-one provider hours this year, because just more kids have need to see that provider. Anything you guys want to share about what you're seeing in schools?
I'm seeing a lot. I can say first and foremost, this year in particular, I've only been working at the hospital for about 1.5 years, and I began as a Stride provider last January. But this year in particular, I have seen an increase in just like an inability to connect with somebody, right? Like an inability to not only like have a conversation, because that it's more than that, an inability to genuinely feel connection, right? And like, that's just the starting off point, and then it just rolls downhill from there, right? Like you don't feel connected to somebody, so you barely feel connected to yourself. Okay, so you don't feel connected to yourself. I can't even identify what I'm feeling right now. I can't identify what I'm feeling. So how can I do something about that, right? How can I combat that? And I mean, it's just a snowball effect, right? Like a student, I've been working so hard with, I see about 5 students this year at between Sturgeon Bay Middle School and high school. So big thing that I've been working on with students is asking them, helping them ask themselves, okay, what am I feeling today? And why am I feeling like that, right? Why am I feeling sad today? Okay, this is we call it a trigger, right? This is what has triggered that feeling for me. So I'm going to try to do something about that trigger to help mitigate it, or maybe not even mitigate it, just to help lessen it, right? To not make it feel as severe. To go hand in hand with what Cami has said, I have seen an increase in students just like being scared to be at school, which like, I mean, I'm kind of old, so I haven't been in school for a minute. But like when I was in school, like school was a really safe place for me, right? Like school was a place that I had fun, and obviously like I like to learn. But youth today, like they don't have the ability to concentrate on what's in front of them to just even feel safe enough to be in school. And it's not because of what schools are doing or anything like that, or school is like an unsafe place, because that's definitely not the case. It's just they feel like their world has been rocked so hard that they just don't know which way is up. Like we, the other last month during our stride meeting, like all of our stride providers get together, and we had commented that third graders this year, they haven't had a normal school year ever. And that's so difficult to think about. Like juniors in high school, they have never had a normal high school experience. Like thinking about the transition between high school and college, if they want to go to college, right? Like high school is a pivotal time in their life to be able to build skills of reading. I mean, yes, they should learn they should know how to read by high school, but you know, like little skills of studying and experiencing what it feels like to be inside of a classroom. Like they've never had that before. And thinking like even juniors in college, right? Like taking it a step further, they have never experienced a normal college experience. And that is just, I mean, just saying that out loud is difficult for me, because that's, I mean, thinking about like where I would have been if that was something that I had ever experienced. So those are just a little bit, and like Jodi said, like I can answer if you guys have any specific questions, but that's just a general overview in terms of what I've been seeing when working with students and their experience in the schools.
I see tremendous indication of trauma, a lot of underlying trauma, and this affects the child's ability to perform well in school. And then there's the tendency that they're labeled with behavior issues, or in some cases misdiagnosed. I think our community is doing a tremendous job through the trauma-informed care team and with the schools to educate what trauma-informed care means, which is to assume that everyone has experienced some form of trauma, and to really look at what is happening underneath the behaviors for the youth. So for one thing that I see is specifically is a 13-year-old who draws like a 2-year-old. And that 13-year-old can kind of get through school, but there are just things that don't make sense in behavior, and certain diagnoses just don't make sense. And so a lot of times trauma is, you know, trauma starts to connect the dots because it does affect brain change. It does sort of stick someone at the age that they were in when the trauma first began to occur. So I see often a gap in, and I can't, if a child doesn't disclose a trauma, I can't project that, but I can certainly help educate the educators, and as a member of the trauma-informed community team, say that this is what I'm seeing, and that we all need to think about trauma before we start labeling someone as, you know, having bad behavior or bad attitude. Trauma informs our ability to focus and to complete tasks and to do things that kids are expected to do, and they literally may not have that capacity in their brains. And so we're talking about what resources can we bring in? How do we expand trauma-informed services in our community?
So as Cami said, I'm going into my 4th week in the school. So I have been in each school 3 or less times based on there are certain conflicts that, but around 3 times. And at each school, I've had more than one adult tell me that they wish there were for more of me. And as much as I like to think that after 3 times of meeting me, they realize how great I am, but it's,
That's definitely it.
it's that,
That's
yeah,
definitely it.
I think so.
Yeah.
But it's more just that it's a need, there aren't enough adults in the building to help take care of the issues that they have. And I'm not a counselor, I'm not a teacher, and it doesn't matter. They just want another adult there to help. So I see that just from the staff perspective and how that can affect their mental health, just a constant need for more help.
And like just to listen, right?
Yes,
To
yeah.
listen.
Yeah, I think as many of us know that having just that additional supportive adult in a child's life is hugely, hugely impactful. Okay, so what else is Stride doing? One of the fun projects we were able to work on in the fall of 2020 was put out what we called mental wellness kits. So after the safer at home orders, we had talked with all the school administration and staff being like, this next school year is still going to be tough. What do you need? What do your kids need? And they had thought providing mental wellness tools such as fidget toys, journals, creative journals, resources that students could use to go look up online. We had some feelings thermometers. Distribute them to the Door County students would be useful. So in, like I said, the fall of 2020, we were able to get about 1,400 kits to distribute to Door County youth in all 5 public school districts that had these tools. We are very excited that we are looking to put out another round of kits at the end of this school year for elementary students to utilize during the summer. Once school shut down, we're seeing that there are just some resources that these youth do not have at home. And we want to be able to just provide them with something that they can utilize over the summer. So we have some really great partnerships with other local organizations. The Door County Partnership with Children and Families is another program out of United Way. The Door County Mental Health Focus Group, and then the Door County Alcohol and Other Drug Coalition, which is also out of United Way. We do a lot of programming and events together because a lot of our work overlaps. So just some fun things that we have coming up we'd like to mention. Oh, well, this is actually, this is the last year we did a suicide awareness campaign in conjunction with the Door County Mental Health Focus Group and our Project 180 peer mentor high school students. We had created these lighthouses to be a beacon of hope that were displayed around Door County with mental health resources, crisis lines, suicide lines, just to spread awareness and to remind people that you can be a light in somebody else's life. So that was a fun project, and the Project 180 kids, those high schoolers, really flourished under having this task that they were involved in. Next weekend, the Door County Mental Health Focus Group is doing an event here right at Crossroads called Chill Out in Nature. It will be on Sunday from 12:30 to 3:30. I do have flyers up on that table if you'd like to grab one. It's going to be a fun event that just kind of lets you be mindful. Jane Burris is an forest art therapist, I believe. She's going to be doing a couple of activities. There's more information on the flyer. I don't recall off the top of my head. But then there's going to be a little resource fair. I know Officer Ott, our mental health officer from the Sheriff's Department, will be there. I will be there again if you feel like coming and talking to me again. I know a couple other people will be there to just share resources in the county. All right. And then our partnership with Children and Families and Bibs and myself will be putting on a parent cafe tomorrow night from 6:30 to 7:30. So a parent cafe is just a resource we like to provide parents, grandparents, or guardians to offer them a safe place to come and talk about issues that they're having in their lives or their children's lives, and just having a safe space to come and discuss solutions. So it will be virtual and it will be open to all of Door County parents or guardians. And again, there's more flyers up on the table if you'd like to grab one to learn more or share it with somebody that you might know who could use this.